issue around contract transparency has been challenging. All right, we still have limited information, if it exists anyway, around the details of the contracts that we go into as a country. Take, for example, the recent let's say, financing support that the NNPC got, the 3 billion that was acquired through the NNPC by the federal government. That begged a lot of questions. What were the details regarding that deal? Why is NNPC still brokering a deal on behalf of the federal government when the NNPC is supposed to be a private company and no longer held and controlled, or no longer owned? Well, for all intents and purposes, no longer represents the federal government of Nigeria and should operate as a private organization. So those are some issues with contract transparency. Regarding beneficial ownership, there's a beneficial ownership portal that has been developed by the Corporate Affairs Commission, which shows the level of exposure of owners. When we talk about beneficial ownership, we're talking about people who own, the real owners behind oil and gas assets or resource assets. Now, while that portal features some information and data regarding this information, is still not exhaustive. It's a start, but a lot more can be done to get more information regarding beneficial ownership in Nigeria. So it's partly good, but also a lot more can be done regarding. I don't think we've hit where we ought to. We've started well. We are still on the journey, but we still have a lot to accomplish when it comes to transparency and accountability in resource management. So generally speaking, we have platforms that are available to disclose government contracts. One of them is the Treasury portal. Another is the Open Treasury portal that Budget Foundation works on to help to disclose government's data. And what that does is that it goes and scouts through disclosed information regarding general procurement, all right, and then begin to list this information on that website. So you can find information regarding the contract, the job, and the contractor itself. Now, that goes as far as the information that is disclosed by the government, and that has to an extent helped to improve the transparency and accountability space a little bit. We've had responses from different players, CSOs, that have taken that information to hold government to account. We have recently a journalist that was arrested because of a piece he did that exposed how a contract was for construction was given to a restaurant. It was through that portal that enabled that information access. All right, so based on the part of CSOs, there are some things that we do. And why we did this is because the kind of data that is being published by the government sometimes are not easily understood, but because of the work we do, we've now been able to take that data, clean it up, and now present it in a way that can be easily understood and read and utilized by accountability actors that want to take this further. So, yeah, on a bit of disclosure, there is some traction going on there. This wasn't possible some years back, but like I said earlier, we've made some progress, but there's still a lot more. Sometimes the data is presented in formats that make it difficult for us to analyze easily through using machine applications, through software applications, and so we have to go through extra effort to clean up this the information, clean the data, and then present it in a format that is easily understood and can be analyzed. So there is a procurement process that needs to be followed, that ensures that there is a system that enables fair competition, equal access to information for all players who are qualified and would like to participate in government contracting processes. Sometimes that system is skewed, and in terms of with regard to the context of host communities, when it comes to resource management, before resource can be extracted from their community, they have to be informed. Before any project relating to resource management, resource use, if it's a well that wants to be dug, if it's a pipeline that needs to pass through their community or close to their community, apart from the fact that the resource has to be, they need to be informed. There are a lot of other KPIs that need to be, sorry, a lot of other indicators that need to be met, such as EIAs and the rest. So in many cases, some of these communities are not informed. Sometimes a certain certain members of the communities are the ones that have that information, and sometimes they don't represent the interests of communities. So what some companies do is that they go meet a few members of those communities, discuss, a few influential members, discuss with them, and then kind of sidetrack the responsibility to actually do what they ought to do. In some cases, some of companies do go through and engage with communities, but some people tend to block resources from getting to block engagement and information from getting to the entire community. So there is a murky, let's say, perspective regarding that space. But recently, with the host, at least with oil and gas, the host community development trust, it now places responsibility on oil and gas companies to properly engage with host communities, and also empowers host communities with the tools and equipment which wish to demand their rights from operating firms that want to extract resources from their community. So, okay, when it comes to resource extraction, resource management, there's the government, there is also operating companies, and there's also the communities, all right? So a lot more can be done to enlighten communities. And each project is unique to itself and to the community. So you may not have a blanket. Yes, ideally, there is a requirement for information to get to communities where these projects are being implemented, all right? But in each project has its unique set of criteria or requirements regarding how to implement that project in that community and how to inform the community about that project. So a lot more can be done. It's not really efficient. It's not done ideally. Sometimes all the players have faults, right? The companies may not have done enough in some cases to inform the communities. Sometimes the government stakeholders may not have empowered their communities enough to be able to access the information. And in some cases, the communities themselves do not have the technical or intellectual capacity to even comprehend what is going on. And that's where civil society comes in to bridge that gap in terms of information and technical capacity. So the work is a lot. The capacity is little, is limited, and that is one of the challenges. There has been regulation to see what regulation does, that it empowers. But if people are not informed of the powers they have, they cannot utilize it. And that is why some CSOs have taken upon themselves, at least with partner funding, to go into this community to start informing them about what the law has said, what regulation has said regarding their resources and their rights. And CSOs have been doing, at least since the PIA was passed, we've had engagements with communities, both in budget and outside budget, other CSO partners, and under various platforms on how to engage properly with the information. So they go to these communities, arm them with the information, and you see results where these communities now begin to engage with regulators, with oil and gas companies. But the more information they get, the more they are equipped to demand for their rights. However, that connection between these communities and accessing that information is still what is lacking. And that is what some CSOs have been trying to do to fill in that gap. On the part of government and the oil and gas companies, they can still do more. Perhaps in terms of interest or so, it may not be, let's say, expedient, but it's necessary that more is done to empower communities to know their rights. At least, if not at the federal or state government level, at community levels, at least local governments, community leaders can do something to make their communities informed regarding what is done in their areas. So, regarding beneficial ownership, it is the new CAC, the amended CAC Act makes it an offense to disclose insufficiently. Right? So, it is mandated by, or it is a mandate on the company to ensure that information about beneficial ownership is completely disclosed and not obscured. That is with beneficial ownership. It is an offense, and there are sanctions in the Act that empowers the CAC to punish erring organizations. Now, access to that portal, it's also registered members or people who are registered with the CAC, organizations that are registered with the CAC can access that portal. There is also supposed to be a citizens portal or a poly portal that allows perhaps some limited information on beneficial ownership. So these instruments are there, these platforms are there, and then penalties are available. However, standing here, right, I can't confidently say that someone has been punished for not disclosing fully. I can't say that right now, but yes, penalties exist. As for the host community development trust, yes, there was a timeline given to oil and gas firms to at least begin some level of implementation of their trust funds with their host communities, and penalties were also included in the act, in the law, for those companies to, if they did not comply. However, with that, the timeline, I think it was 9 months or 12 months, the timeline passed and no sanctions were deployed. And CSOs took it upon themselves to write to the government and to bring their attention to the fact that we have companies that have failed to comply but have not yet been penalized, and therefore you should sanction these companies to mandate them or to enforce them to comply with requirements of the law. It's not that it's restricted, so there are levels of access. And it's also important to know that some of this information is sensitive, all right? So there might be certain issues regarding exposing, let me use that word, regarding exposing that information. Now, it's not as if it's not available to the public. As at the last time I checked, the citizens portal, if I use that word, was still undergoing some modifications regarding how to allow full access, all right? And then there is the second layer of access where, so that they can vet who is accessing this information, all right? If there's some information that is open to the entire public by law, now certain parts of, certain layers perhaps may require vetting of who has. It's not as if it's a barrier in a sense. It's just that if you want to access this information, just register your name and your organization. This is who I this is who I am, and this is why I want to, and this is why I want to access information. So that was also under development. As at the last time I checked, which is let me say 3 or 4 months ago, the vetting process was not, let's say, fully seamless. We tested it and we were supposed to get feedback, but we didn't get the full feedback yet, perhaps due to developmental issues of the platformers regarding registering CSOs or registering people who want to access information. But I would say, if you look at where we've come from, 5 years ago there was little information about beneficial ownership, all right? And then it started with NAITI and then DPR, who came up with the first beneficial ownership register. And then from there, it has been improved to a bigger register that is being done by the CAC, and not just covering the oil and gas sector, but every sector of the economy. So it's a journey. It's probably not yet perfect yet, but I think with persistence and consistency, we can get to where we need to get to.
Okay, in your rating, what do you think
the government, what is the government? The government, there's no government without the people, and there's no people without the government. If you are a governor or a president, you have to be able to carry your people along. That is what governance is all about. If you are going to a community to do exercise something or do something that the people are not even aware of, it's time to be that kind of stealing, because you're taking what belongs to them. It's a natural thing that God gave them. Because they are residents of that place, they are the owner. they should be carried along. How? By kind of giving them employment afterwards or empowering them. Because while these things, if you see where they are miming or breaking stone or all those things, if you see the kind of noise or the air pollution these things cause, you can see the people are the ones that are being affected. While the government are there seated and the money comes to them and nothing goes back to the people. I think the people or the community, the people in the community should be carried along and should be empowered, should be informed. There should be a pre-information from the government to the people, and they should be carried along and be given employment. If you go to these villages, these things are being carried out, you could see there's no even little or no development there. Why? Because they feel these people are not exposed, nobody to speak for them. For there's a need for the government to do the needful by carrying these people along, providing what they need to survive around that place. Most of them does not even have good water to drink, and they're still miming in that place. The government have their presence there, but care little about the people in the community. The people should be allowed to speak their mind. People should come out to talk. They shouldn't be, there's this fear that if I say something, I'll be killed or something. That fear is in the people, it's in the people of the community. So they feel, okay, let's just live with it. You don't just live with something that you know that would not benefit you anything. Why not stand up to what is yours and fight for what is yours? How do you do that? By coming out to speak. We have media people, media organization that is ready to carry out these things to help you fight for your rights. But they cannot come to you unless you come to them to seek for help. Why not come out and speak to advocate for what actually rightfully belongs to you? That's what they should do. They should speak out. They should come out and say, okay, this thing we are no longer in, we don't like what people are doing to us. If you are sick, you don't speak out. Nobody will know that you are sick. It's when you are sick and you speak out, we will know where the sickness is and you'll be helped. So the people should come out and speak their mind.
To me, awarding contract from the government to private company supposed to be made open. You understand? Supposed to be made open. To me, there shouldn't be a kind of secrecy within the system, because if government is not making this thing open, it will spoil up resource control. You know, we have been having resource control in the past that people are saying no, states should control their resources. No. So to me, government should make this thing open, because let me take for example, in my village there's a place they call Ibodi in Ilesha, Osun State. We have a lot of gold in my place, a lot of gold, where the Hausa people always come to mine. But before they mine this thing, the chief of the village must be carried along, because it takes some percentage from the money those boys are getting from that thing. They always give the chief some percentage. To me, if government is intending to be mining a kind of mineral resources in a village, you understand? The citizens ought to be aware of social thing. They ought to be aware, being that because the resources, the money they will be getting from there, giving it to the citizen will be using it to kind of develop part of their community. It will serve as a development to them. So there is need for government to make this things open. Okay. Make it open. The government who sign an agreement with them and telling them to do social project before they leave, the government is supposed to hold those companies accountable. And that is why it's necessary for the government to carry citizens along, so that they can jointly hold this company together. That is a good one. Instead of giving the community part of the money collected, if the company can be using that avenue to develop part of the community, as in doing road, erecting a water project for the people, that's borrow for them, doing a kind of thing, it will be good. Instead of giving them the money, erecting the project for them, it will be good. I think that is a good one.
Well, transparency is always key in every relationship, be it between the citizens and the government, be it between the seller and the buyer, be it between the giver and the taker. It's always very, very key that transparency is a part of the conversation. And I think the government can be transparent enough with awarding contracts. I mean, we always have this question of national character when we try to award contracts in a way that it goes around. But whatever you do, you should always know that the people who are at the receiving end are the people who are in that particular locality. So you must first think about what you do to look out for them, how you're going to cater back for them, how you're going to make sure that you strengthen their needs in providing that supply that makes it for them to be able to find life a lot more easier. And that is very, very key. So if you are awarding a contract to a community, first off, what you should look at to see that that contract is being done by people in that community, at least to be able to provide employment. That is first. And second, you should be able to also make sure that that contract has an end product to the people in a way that it does benefit them, even futuristically. You also should be able to look at the idea of also inculcating involvement. And when I mean involvement, bringing everybody to the fold. Suggestions, ideas, contributions. This can also help the government to serve the people way better in awarding contracts. Do what is right at the right time will naturally now tells you that when you are taking, you naturally should be given. Now, when you are taking our vote, when you are taking our commitment, when you are taking our trust to lead, you should equally lead and appropriately. Of course, when you are a leader, you are naturally open to resources, and these resources are not just for you, but again, for other people who you lead. How you manage these resources does matter. You go to the likes of Zamfara, where you find lithium. You go to KB, you find uranium. You go to Enugu, you find coal. You go to, there are so many natural resources across every state in Nigeria. We could also mention OD community there in Bayelsa State, where in 1999, we knew what happened with that community and the federal government at that time, where there was a massive massacre right there at that community. What led to that? It was a question where the poor wouldn't became amnesty seekers now seeking for a way that they can find themselves out to survive. You can't take our oil and not give us the least, which even is water. And I think it is not a call that should be rejected or dejected or neglected. Rather, it should be attended with a maximum strength of urgency. So for me, I think when you go to places like Yori, a local government area in Kebbi State, where people will have to go and book the water that is as dirty as a squeeze or juice, pap juice, the water is as dirty as that, and then people will still have to go as early as possible, at 7 a.m. just to book for that dirty water that they are going to drink, just because that the community or the government is irresponsible of and being unable to provide them water. I mean, that's a community that's rich of natural resources. You look at Enugu State, for instance, in 2020, where COVID-19 was ravishing the whole of the world. Enugu State were still fetching from Iziama River, where the Iziama community was still fetching from Iziama River, where they were taking that for their survival for water supply. That is shameful. And what that caused was that it helped the sporadical stretch of COVID-19 at that time in that community, in that state, which was even much more losses to the people and of course to the government. So I think the government should come to the party and come prepared and come totally ready to make it happen. You can't take from us and not give back to us. When you are taking the resources, you should also return back with resources that will be commensurate. Okay.